Hello. Welcome back to the Story Corner. Thanks for stopping by. Unless you're new, and then just welcome. um, Before we get started, I always ask because I do this right after dinner. After I clean up, I do this story. So it's kind of always on my mind. Besides, I love to cook. So I always have what I made for dinner on my mind. So, and I think it's fun because I always am curious what people are making because it gives you ideas, right? So, what did you have for dinner? We had tomato soup. It was the most beautiful rainy day here in Florida. And we had tomato basil soup. And then I made grilled tuna and pepper jack cheese sandwiches to go with it. It was so good. And then we just had oranges for dessert, just peeled oranges and ate them for the sweet. It was so yummy. Yeah, it turned out really good. I love grilled cheese, so it was yummy. And I had made fresh bread a couple of days, 2 days ago, so we had the yummy bread, and it was good. And then I do like to show off a few of the things I've made because I make things and I have a store and I sell online. And I used to go to craft shows and stuff, but not so much now because life, life. But I'll show off a few things I've made, and everything I show on my channel, it is for sale. If there's ever anything anybody sees and they're like, "Oh my heck, I want that," message me. Put a message. No, it's available. So these are treble clef earrings, and they're super sparkly because they have this white sparkly. I'm trying to see if I can get them to sparkle, the glitter in them. So cute. I love music. I sort of play the piano, so I miss my piano. Holy cow! I haven't played for 2.5 years. It's been in storage. It's rough. It's hard on me. I miss my piano. And then these, now I'm not into weed and I don't think it's cool. I'm sorry, that hot take maybe, but my daughter loves it. And she's, oh, you should do some weed stuff. People love it. And I was like, yeah. Okay, so I did. And sure enough, people love it. And I've sold a lot of it. Uh, so this is not an endorsement of weed, but yes, I do make weed earrings and things like that. So these ones are made of clay, and they're really cute with I like the colors, how it's kind of light green out on the tips, and yeah, anyway, so yeah, I do that. And then these are some of, I think I've showed off some of my bear, like little gummy bear looking earrings, but these ones they were supposed to be purple, and they are, but they're so dark purple. I'm trying to see if you can kind of see, but they're almost black because I put a little too much because it's a kind of a deep purple ink, and I put too much, so it you can't. They're not very purple. They're mostly black, so they almost look like licorice gummy bears, which I've never heard of those, but they'd probably be yummy. And I'm one of those weird people that likes black licorice. So, oh, sorry, I might I have a scratch. My baby scratched me. Yeah, he's a stinker. Anyway, so here's these super cute little gummy bear looking, supposed to be purple, but kind of turned out black earrings. Oh, there. See, you can see that it's a little purple from the side with the light shining through it. Pretty much black. Really cute. I love these bear ones. I've sold a lot of the little teddy bear ones, not only to little girls because they love them because they look like teddy bears or gummy bears, but teachers love the bears and the candy sprinkles and the cute little things that the kids love, right? So they love to wear these bright, sparkly, cute design that their kids are going to say, oh, that's so cute. So I sell a lot of that stuff to teachers, which I think is cute. Okay, so Evelina, she's in London again, but she's with her grandmother, which sucks, and her cousins, which is also very unpleasant for her. Anyway, she's let's see, she left money for I'm having a brain fart. What's his name? McCartney, the McCartney guy. The guy she stopped from committing suicide. So she left him some money. So the Reverend Arthur Villers wrote back to her and sent her more money, right? Because he thought it was so sweet of her and wished he could help more. And so we're kind of at that point, and she kind of wants to find out what is happening with him and why he's in mourning and why he's in so much trouble and why he has no money and no help and no friends and he's all alone. And so it's kind of where we're at. Okay. Letter 20, Evelina in continuation. I have just received a most affecting letter from Mr. Macartney. I will enclose it, my dear sir, for your perusal. More than ever have I cause to rejoice that I was able to assist him. Mr. Macartney to Miss Anville. Madam, impressed with the deepest, the most heartfelt sense of the exalted humanity with which you have rescued from destruction an unhappy stranger, allow me, with the humblest gratitude, to offer you my fervent acknowledgments and to implore your pardon for the terror I have caused you. You bid me, madam, live. I have now indeed a motive for life, since I should not willingly quit the world while I withhold from the needy and distressed any share of that charity which disposition so noble would otherwise bestow upon them. The benevolence with which you have interested yourself in my affairs induces me to suppose you would wish to be acquainted with the cause of that desperation from which you snatched me, and the particulars of that misery of which you have so wonderfully been a witness. Yet, as this explanation will require that I should divulge secrets of a nature the most delicate, I must entreat you to regard them as sacred, even though I forbear to mention the names of the parties concerned. I was brought up in Scotland, though my mother, who had the sole care of me, was an Englishwoman, and had not one relation in that country. She devoted to me her whole time. The retirement in which we lived, and the distance from our natural friends, she often told me, were the effect of an unconquerable melancholy with which she was seized, upon the sudden loss of my father, some time before I was born. At Aberdeen, where I finished my education, I formed a friendship with a young man of fortune, which I considered as the chief happiness of my life. But when he quitted his studies, I considered it as my chief misfortune, for he immediately prepared, by direction of his friends, to make the tour of Europe. As I was designed for the church, and had no prospect even of maintenance but from my own industry, I scarce dared permit even a wish of accompanying him. It is true, I would have joyfully have borne my expenses, but my affection was as free from meanness as his own, and I made a determination the most solemn never to lessen its dignity by submitting to pecuniary obligations. So even though he had a really rich friend, he didn't have money himself. He was going to go into the church as a parson or a preacher. And so, even though he knew his rich friend would have taken him and paid his way if he asked, he didn't ever want to take advantage of him because he loved his friend for him, not for his money, and he didn't want to owe him anything, which is quite honorable, I think, actually. We corresponded with great regularity and the most unbounded confidence for the space of 2 years when he arrived at Lyons on his way home. He wrote me thence the most pressing invitation to meet him in Paris, where he intended to remain some time. My desire to comply with his request and shorten our absence was so earnest that my mother, too indulgent to control me, lent me what assistance was in her power, and in ill-fated moment I set out for that capital. My meeting with this dear friend was the happiest event of my life. He introduced me to all his acquaintance, and so quickly did time seem to pass at that delightful period, that the 6 weeks I had allotted for my stay were gone, ere I was sensible I had missed so many days. But I must now own that the company of my friend was not the sole subject of my felicity. I became acquainted with a young lady, daughter of an Englishman of distinction, with whom I formed an attachment which I have 1,000 times vowed, 1,000 times sincerely thought, would be lasting as my life. She had but just quitted a convent in which she had been placed when a child, and though English by birth, she could scarcely speak her native language. Her person and disposition were equally engaging, but chiefly I adored her for the greatness of the expectations which, for my own sake, she was willing to resign. So she loved him, they fell in love, and she liked him so much that she would have been willing to give up her misfortune and everything to be with him, which, he loved her anyway, but that made him love her even more, that she would sacrifice, to be with him, which is sweet. When the time for my residence in Paris expired, I was almost distracted at the idea of quitting her, yet I had not the courage to make our attachment known to her father, who might reasonably form for her such views as would make him reject with a contempt which I could not bear to think of such an offer as mine. Yet I had free access to the house, where she seemed to be left almost wholly to the guidance of an old servant who was my fast friend. But, to be brief, the sudden and unexpected return of her father one fateful afternoon proved the beginning of the misery which has ever since devoured me. I doubt not but he had listened to our conversation, for he darted into the room with the rage of a madman. Heavens, what a scene followed! What abusive language did the shame of a clandestine affair and the consciousness of acting ill induce me to brook? At length, however, his fury exceeded my patience. He called me a beggarly, cowardly Scotchman. Fired at the words, I drew my sword. He, with equal alertness, drew his, for he was not an old man, but on the contrary, strong and able as myself. In vain his daughter pleaded, in vain did I, repentant of my anger, retreat. His reproaches continued. Myself, my country, were loaded with infamy, till no longer constraining my rage, we fought, and he fell. At that moment I could almost have destroyed myself. The young lady fainted with terror. The old servant, drawn to us by the noise of the scuffle, entreated me to escape and promised to bring intelligence of what should pass to my apartment. The disturbance which I heard raised in the house obliged me to comply, and in a state of mind inconceivably wretched, I tore myself away. My friend, who I found at home, soon discovered the whole affair. It was near midnight before the woman came. She told me that her master was living and her young mistress restored to her senses. The absolute necessity for my leaving Paris, while any danger remained, was forcibly urged by my friend. The servant promised to acquaint him of whatever passed, and he to transmit to me her information. Thus circumstanced, with the assistance of this dear friend, I effected my departure from Paris, and not long after I returned to Scotland. I would fain have stopped by the way, that I might have been nearer the scene of all my concerns, but the low state of my finances denied me that satisfaction. So he couldn't even stop by and make sure everything was okay before he left because he couldn't afford it. And of course, he probably wanted to see her too. The miserable situation of my mind was soon discovered by my mother, nor would she rest till I communicated the cause. She heard my whole story with an agitation which astonished me. The name of the parties concerned seemed to strike her with horror, and when I said, we fought, and he fell, my son, cried she, you have been murdered, your father. There's a twist. Wow. And that's his sister, apparently. And she sunk breathless at my feet. Comments, madam, upon such a scene as this would to you be superfluous, and to me agonizing. I cannot, for both our sakes, be too concise. When she recovered, she confessed all the particulars of a tale which she had hoped never to have revealed. Alas, the loss she had sustained of my father was not by death. Bound to her by no ties but those of honour, he had voluntarily deserted her. Her settling in Scotland was not the effect of choice. She was banished thither by a family but too justly incensed. Pardon, madam, that I cannot be more explicit. My senses, in the greatness of my misery, actually forsook me, and for more than a week I was wholly delirious. My unfortunate mother was yet more to be pitied, for she pined with unmitigated sorrow, eternally reproaching herself for the danger to which her too strict silence had exposed me. When I recovered my reason, my impatience to hear from Paris almost deprived me of it again, and though the length of time I waited for letters might justly be attributed to contrary winds, I could not bear the delay, and was 20 times upon the point of returning thither at all hazards. At length, however, several letters arrived at once, and from the most insupportable of my afflictions I was then relieved, for they acquainted me with the horrors of parricide were not in the reserve for me. They informed me also that as soon as the wound was healed, a journey would be made to England, where my unhappy sister was to be received by an aunt with whom she was to live. Can you imagine finding out you'd fallen in love with your sister? That would suck, right? That'd be so dumb. This intelligence somewhat quieted the violence of my sorrows. I instantly formed a plan of meeting them in London, and by revealing the whole dreadful story, convincing this irritated parent that he had nothing more to apprehend from his daughter's unfortunate choice. My mother consented and gave me a letter to prove the truth of my assertions. As I could but ill afford to make this journey, I travelled in the cheapest way that was possible. I took an obscure lodging. I need not, madame, tell you where, and boarded with the people of the house. So they're with her cousins, who are not very nice people. Here I languished week after week, vainly hoping for the arrival of my family. But my impetuosity had blinded me to the imprudence of which I was guilty in quitting Scotland so hastily. My wounded father, after his recovery, relapsed, and when I had waited in the most comfortless situation for 6 weeks, my friend wrote me word, and that the journey was yet deferred for some time longer. My finances were then nearly exhausted, and I was obliged, though most unwillingly, to beg further assistance from my mother, that I might return to Scotland. Oh, madame, my answer was not from herself. It was written by a lady who had long been her companion, and acquainted me that she had been taken suddenly ill of a fever, and was no more. Oh my goodness. No wonder this poor guy's so depressed. Falls in love with a girl, battles her father, wounds him, almost kills him, finds out that it's his father and that she's his sister. So not only did he almost kill his own father, who he's never met, that he's in love with his sister that he obviously can't marry. And so then when he goes to try to fix it and make it right while he's gone, his mother dies. That's a hell of a situation, let me tell you. Dang, that'd be rough. Sheesh. The compassionate nature of which you have given such noble proofs assures me I need not, if I could, paint to you the anguish of a mind overwhelmed with such accumulated sorrows. Enclosed was a letter to a near relation which she had, during her illness, with much difficulty, written, and in which, with the strongest maternal tenderness, she described my deplorable situation, and entreated his interest to procure me some preferment. Yet so sunk was I by misfortune that a fortnight elapsed before I had the courage or spirit to attempt delivering this letter. I was then compelled to it by want. To make my appearance with some decency, I was necessitated myself to the melancholy task of changing my coloured clothes for a suit of mourning, and then I proceeded to seek my relation. I was informed that he was not in town. So the only hope he had for help was a relation of his mother's that she wrote a letter to saying, "Please, will you help my son?" So he finally goes to do that when he's desperate and he's not there. Say hi. Mwah, mwah. Hi. You're so adorable. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Yeah, say hi. He's so cute. Oh, I love you. Mwah. Need a drink? Yeah. I can't quit kissing him. He's so cute. Oh, I love you. Ah. Want this? Want that? Okay. Yeah, what is it? Oh my goodness. Mwah. In this desperate situation, the pride of my heart, which hitherto had not bowed to adversity, gave way, and I determined to entreat the insistence of my friend. So he decided he's so desperate he's going to ask his rich friend for help, whose offered services I had 1,000 times rejected. Yet, madame, so hard is it to root from the mind its favourite principles or prejudices, call them what you please, that I lingered another week ere I had the resolution to send away a letter which I regarded as the death of my independence. Yeah, I think when you're to the point where you actually have to ask people for help, it's so humiliating. At length, reduced to my last shilling, dunned insolently by the people of the house, and almost famished, I sealed this fatal letter, and with a heavy heart determined to take it to the post office. But Mr. Brankton and his son suffered me not to pass through their shop with impunity. They insulted me grossly and threatened me with imprisonment if I did not immediately satisfy their demands. Stung to the soul, I bid them have but a day's patience, and flung from them in a state of mind too terrible for description. My letter, which I now found would be received too late to save me from disgrace, I tore into 1,000 pieces, and scarce could I refrain from putting an instantaneous, an unlicensed period to my existence. In this disorder of my senses, I formed the horrible plan of turning footpad, for which purpose I returned to my lodging and collected whatever of my apparel I could part with, which I immediately sold, and with the profits purchased a brace of pistols, powder, and shot. I hope, however, you will believe me when I most solemnly assure you my sole intention was to frighten the passengers I should assault with these dangerous weapons, which I had not loaded. So he decides to go rob somewhere, but not even load the pistols, but just scare him into giving him stuff. uh, but from a resolution, a dreadful one I own, to save myself from an ignominious death, if seized, and indeed I thought that if I could but procure money sufficient to pay Mr. Brington and make a journey to Scotland, I should soon be able by public papers to discover whom I had injured and to make private retribution. But, madame, now to every species of villainy my perturbation was so great that I could with difficulty support myself, yet the Bringtons observed it not as I passed through the shop. Here I stop. What followed is better known to yourself, but no time can ever efface from my memory that moment when, in the very action of preparing for my own destruction, or the lawless seizure of the property of others, you rushed into the room and arrested my arm. It was indeed an awful moment. The hand of Providence seemed to intervene between me and eternity. I beheld you as an angel. I thought you dropped from the clouds. The earth, indeed, had never before presented to my view a form so celestial. What wonder, then, that a spectacle so astonishing should, to a man disordered as I was, appear to be too beautiful to be human? And now, madame, that I have performed that painful task, the more grateful one remains of rewarding, as far as in my power, your generous goodness, by assuring you it shall not be thrown away. You have awakened me to a sense of the false pride by which I have been actuated, a pride which, while it scorned assistance from a friend, scrupled not to compel it from a stranger, though at the hazard of reducing that stranger to a situation as destitute as my own. Yet, oh, how violent was it! Hey, don't rip it! I need those. Little helper. How violent was the struggle which tore my conflicting soul, ere I could persuade myself to profit by the benevolence which you were so evidently disposed to exert in my favour. By means of a ring, the gift of my much regretted mother, I had for the present satisfied Mr. Brington, and by means of your compassion, I hope to support myself, either till I hear from my friend, to whom at length I have written, or till the relation of my mother returns to town. To talk to you, madam, of paying my debt would be vain. I never can. The service you have done me exceeds all power of return. You have restored me to my senses. You have taught me to curb those passions which bereft me of them, and since I cannot avoid calamity, to bear it as a man. And an interposition so wonderfully circumstanced can never be recollected without benefit. Yet allow me to say the pecuniary part of my obligation must be settled by my first ability. So he's like, I can never repay the debt, but I will at least repay the money. I am, madam, with the most profound respect and heartfelt gratitude, your obedient and devoted humble servant, J. McCartney. Now, I had forgotten a lot of this, so because it's been years since I read this book, and there's a lot. Hi, I love you. And there's a lot in it, so I forgot about that, the sister and everything in the fight. But I will tell you that as twisted as that situation is, it gets worse. Believe it if you want. Okay, I'm going to see how long this next letter is, because if it's not too long, I'm going to read it. Let's see. I don't know. What do you say? Should I read it? No? Yeah? It is kind of a long one. Hey. Not quite as long as that one, but almost. Oh, thanks for the love. Hey, who's that? Are you the cutest baby ever? Yeah. Hey. I love you so much. Hi. I'm trying to decide if I should read it or not, or if he's going to make it very difficult. Because once he comes in here and climbs on me and starts getting into stuff, it does become somewhat difficult. Should we try another chapter? Are you going to be a stinker, huh? Or are you going to be happy and sweet? You going to be happy and sweet? Huh? No? Yeah? He sings this fun little hum song. It's so cute. Kalis is trying to learn how to... Oh, look, Tess says, hi, Kaden. Say hi, Tess. Hi. Say hi. Hey. Hi. Nope, he's too distracted. Too distracted with the book. Don't lose my place. I love you. I'm trying to decide if he's gonna make it too difficult to read. I know yesterday he got so noisy at the end. I'm sure it was really hard to hear. And this is quite long. Actually, it's not quite. Oh, it's longer than that other one. Okay, we might just have to do that one tomorrow because I don't know. You might not be able to hear. But there's a couple of you on here, which lots of times there's not because everybody's so busy. So now I'm tempted to just do it because you're here and that's so fun and I love it. Oh, Caden, little helper. He shut down my screen. I'm sure you could still see me, but everything was gone. It's like a pumpkin. Oh, Tess says do it. Okay, we'll just keep reading then. Okay, what are you doing? Yeah, what do you see? You want to see this one? Oh, look, there's a bear. He loves books. He loves them. He's like me. I'm such a book person. Okay. All right, Tess says do it. Here we go. Letter 21. Oh, and I apologize for the Scottish accent. I'm not very good at it, but we do the best we can. Letter 21. Evelina in continuation. Holborn, July 1, 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh, sir, what an adventure have I to write. All night it has occupied my thoughts, and I am now risen thus early to write to you. Yesterday it was settled that we should spend the evening in Maybourne Gardens, where Monsieur Torre, a celebrated foreigner, was to exhibit some fireworks. The party consisted of Madame Duval, all the Branghtons, Monsieur Dubois, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Brown. We were almost the first persons who entered the gardens, Mr. Brangton having declared he would have all he could get for the money, which at best was only fooled away at such silly and idle places. Oh, you stuck on the cord? There you go. You're okay. We walked in parties and very much detached from one another. Mr. Brown and Miss Polly led the way by themselves. Miss Brangton and Mr. Smith followed, and the latter seemed determined to be revenged for my behaviour at the ball by transferring all his former attention from me to Miss Brangton, who received it with an air of exultation, and very frequently they each of them, though from different motives, looked back to discover whether I observed their good intelligence. So he's trying to make her jealous by putting all his attention back to Polly, which, oh, that's rough. She never liked him in the first place. Madame Duval walked with Monsieur Dubois and Mr. Brangton by himself, but his son would willingly have attached himself wholly to me, saying frequently, "Come, miss, let you and I have a little fun together. You see they have all left us, so now let us leave them." But I begged to be excused and went to the other side of Madame Duval. This garden, as it is called, is neither striking for magnificence nor for beauty, and we were all so dull and languid that I was extremely glad when we were summoned to the orchestra upon the opening of a concert, in the course of which I had the pleasure of hearing a concerto on the violin by Mr. Bartholomew, who to me seems a player of exquisite fancy, feeling, and variety. When notice was given us that the fireworks were preparing, we hurried along to secure good places for the sight, but very soon we were so encircled and incommoded by the crowd that Mr. Smith proposed the ladies should make interest for a form to stand upon. This was soon effected, and the men then left us to accommodate themselves better, saying they would return the moment the exhibition was over. The firework was really beautiful, and told with wonderful ingenuity the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. But at the moment of the fatal look which separated them forever, there was such an explosion of fire and so horrible a noise that we all, as of one accord, jumped hastily from the form and ran away some paces, fearing that we were in danger of mischief from the innumerable sparks of fire which glittered in the air. For a moment or two I neither knew nor considered whither I had run, but my recollection was soon awakened by a stranger's addressing me with, "Come along with me, my dear, and I'll take care of you." I started, and then to my great terror perceived that I had outrun all my companions and saw not one human being I knew. With all the speed in my power, and forgetful of my first fright, I hastened back to the place I had left, but found the form occupied by a new set of people. In vain, from side to side, I looked for some face I knew. I found myself in the midst of a crowd, yet without party, friend, or acquaintance. Is it stuck? It's the wrong way. Here, let me show you. Here, I'll help you. Here, just a second. Let me help him. Okay. Here you go. There. There. Oh, there. Good job. Yeah, it'll fit now. Here you go. Good job. Yeah. Well, quit taking it off. He's funny. I walked in disordered haste from place to place without knowing which way to turn or whither I went. Every other moment I was spoken to by some bold and unfeeling man. 1, 2, 3. What? Oh, you're going to get down? Do you want an ice? No? Okay. You want a piece of ice? Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yum. Uh-oh. Every other moment I was spoken to by some bold and unfeeling man, to whom my distress, which I think must be very apparent, only furnished a pretence for impertinent witticisms or free gallantry. At last a young officer, marching fiercely up to me, said, "You are a sweet, pretty creature, and I enlist you in my service." And then, with great violence, he seized my hand. I screamed aloud with fear, and forcibly snatching it away, I ran hastily up to 2 ladies and cried, "For heaven's sake, dear ladies, afford me some protection." They heard me with a loud laugh, but very readily said, "Aye, let her walk between us," and each of them took hold of an arm. Then, in a drawling, "Oh, did you fall down? Come here. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's okay. You're a big boy. You're a big boy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Aw. You're so cute. We'll see. Sometimes he'll just be happy after. Did you fall? Do you need another ice? Here. Oh, be nice. Oh, look. Maybe father will come back. He loves ice. Okay, here we go. Then, in a drawling, ironical tone of voice, they asked what had frightened my little ladyship. I told them my adventure very simply and entreated they would have the goodness to assist me in finding my friends. "Oh, yes, to be sure," they said. "I should not want for friends whilst I was with them. Mine," I said, "would be very grateful for any civilities with which they might favour me." Jimmy. But imagine, my dear sir, how I must be confounded when I observed that every other word I spoke. Are you sad? Here. Okay. I love you. Oh, you want more now? Already? Well, that was gone fast. I don't want to drink anymore of this. We keep putting our fingers in it. There we go. Oh, you have to take it out of my mouth? Here. You're silly. But imagine, my dear sir, how I must be confounded when I observed that every other word I spoke produced a loud laugh. However, I will not dwell upon a conversation which soon, to my inexpressible horror, convinced me I had sought protection from insult of those who were themselves more likely to offer it. You may, dearest sir, I well know, will both feel for and pity my terror, which I have no words to describe. Had I been at liberty, I should have instantly run away from them when I made the shocking discovery, but as they held me fast, that was utterly impossible, and such was my dread of their resentment or abuse that I did not dare make any open attempt to escape. They asked me 1,000 questions, accompanied by as many halloos of who I was, what I was, and whence I came. My answers were very incoherent, but what, good heaven, were my emotions, when a few moments afterwards I perceived advancing our way Lord Orville. Ah, here comes Lord Orville back into the picture. Dun dun dun. Here. Never shall I forget what I felt at that instant. Had I indeed been sunk to the guilty state which such companions might lead him to suspect, I could scarce have had feelings more cruelly depressing. However, to my infinite joy, he passed us without distinguishing me, though I saw that in a careless manner his eyes surveyed the party. As soon as he was gone, one of those unhappy women said, "Do you know that young fellow?" Not thinking it possible she should mean Lord Orville by such a term, I readily answered, "No, madam." "Why, then," answered she, "you have a monstrous good stare for a little country miss." I now found I had mistaken her, but was glad to avoid an explanation. A few minutes after, what was my delight to hear the voice of Mr. Brown, who called out, "Isn't that Miss What's her name?" "Thank God!" cried I, suddenly springing from them both. "Thank God, I have found my party." Mr. Brown was, however, alone, and without knowing what I did, I took hold of his arm. "Miss," cried he, "we've had such a hunt you can't think. Some of them thought you was gone home, but I says I don't think, says I, that she's like to go home all alone, says I." "So that gentleman belongs to you, miss, does he?" said one of the women. "Yes, madam," answered I, "and I now thank you for your civility, but as I am safe, will not give you any further trouble." I curtsied slightly and would have walked away, but most unfortunately, Madame Duval and the two Miss Brangtons just then joined us. Oh, you just need lots of hugs. Yeah, hugs and nuts. Who's gonna tickle you? Here it comes. Here it comes. Tickle, 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 tickle. You're so silly. You're so silly. You're so loud. Look, who's that? Is that Kaden? What you doing? Okay. Oh, I lost my place. They all began to make 1,000 inquiries, to which I briefly answered that I had been obliged to these two ladies for walking with me, and would tell them more another time, for though I felt a great comparative courage, I was yet too much intimidated by their presence to dare be explicit. Nevertheless, I ventured once more to wish them good night. What the heck? Wow, I keep losing my place. And proposed seeking Mr. Brangton. These unhappy women listened to all that was said with a kind of callous curiosity, and seemed determined not to take any hint. But my vexation was terribly augmented when, after having whispered something to each other, they very cavalierly declared that they intended joining our party. And then one of them very boldly took hold of my arm, while the other, going round, seized that of Mr. Brown, and thus almost forcibly we were moved on between them and followed by Madame Duval and the Miss Branghtons. It would be very difficult to say which was greatest, my fright or Mr. Brown's consternation, who ventured not to make the least resistance, though his uneasiness made him tremble almost as much as myself. I would instantly have withdrawn my arm, but it was held so tight I could not move it, and poor Mr. Brown was circumstanced in the same manner on the other side, for I heard him say, "Ma'am, there's no need to squeeze one's arm so." And this was our situation, for we had not taken 3 steps when, oh, sir, we again met Lord Orville, but not again did he pass quietly by us. Unhappily, I caught his eye. Both mine immediately were bent to the ground, but he approached me, and we all stopped. I then looked up. He bowed. Good heaven, with what expressive eyes did he regard me! Never were surprise and concern so strongly marked. Yes, my dear sir, he looked greatly concerned, and the remembrance of that, is the only consolation I feel for an evening the most painful of my life. What he first said I know not, for indeed I seem to have neither ears nor understanding, but I recollect that I only curtsied in silence. He paused for an instant, as if, I believe so, as if unwilling to pass on, and then, finding the whole party detained, he again bowed and took leave. What a mad! What time you just want mama? Yeah, you're silly baby. You're tired. Oh my goodness. He was so sad and noisy last night, and then he instantly went to sleep. Okay, should we just go put you to bed? Okay, I don't think he's gonna let me finish. Well, we'll pick up. I'll read back a little bit tomorrow. We'll pick up again, but he's gonna be kind of sad, so maybe we'll just have to say goodnight. Okay, look, Kaden, we're gonna say goodnight. Say bye-bye. Oh my goodness, are you grumpy? Are you grumpy? Yeah. Don't be grumpy. Say bye. Oh. Oh, well. Maybe he's just going to go play for a minute then. He's so tired. He gets so silly. Okay. Oh, well, okay. Never mind. Oh. I can't tell if he's going to go out or not. Indeed, my dear sir, I thought I should have fainted, so great was my emotion from shame, vexation, and 1,000 other feelings for which I have no expressions. I absolutely tore myself from the woman's arm, and then disengaging myself from that of Mr. Brown, I went to Madame Duval and besought that she would not suffer me to be again parted from her. I fancy that Lord Orville saw what passed, for scarcely was I at liberty ere he returned. Methought, my dear sir, the pleasure, the surprise of that moment recompensed me for all the chagrin I had before felt. For do you not think that his return manifests from a character so quiet, so reserved as Lord Orville, something like solicitude in my concern? Such at least was the interpretation of Okay, baby. Get it. You take your hand. Okay, all right. You're so tired. Need to go put you to bed. Okay, say bye. Bye-bye. Say bye. Good night. No kisses. No kisses. All right. I'm going to go put him to bed, and we will pick up tomorrow. Good night. Love you all. Bye-bye. Now he's happy. Say bye-bye. Bye. Good night. Thanks for stopping by. Oh, there you go. One little wave goodbye with a chubby little belly hanging out. Ouch. Okay. Good night. We'll take the wild little boy and go put him to bed. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for stopping by.